Leslie.
Hi.
Hi.
Ann.
Welcome to IndieWire.
Thank you.
Our little impromptu studio here. How many seasons of Homeland have you done, and how has your relationship to the show evolved?
I started off in season 2. They had called me to direct in season 1, and I wasn't available. But I heard about the show. I was fascinated by its content, and I came to direct for the first time in season 2. And I got an extraordinary script called Q&A, written by the late great Henry Bromell. And I read the script, and I had a total freak out because it was about 40 pages in one room. And it was an interrogation. It was a scene that took place between the amazing Claire Danes and the incredible Damian Lewis. So that's the thing that got me calmed down, is that I was going to be stuck in this room, but I was going to be stuck in this room with these two extraordinary actors. So I just had to embrace the fact that that's what was amazing about it, is that you have two extraordinary characters that are in completely different places, and you have a character who has been incarcerated, been held against his will for 8 years, and he's been interrogated multiple times. What is it going to take for him to turn? And then you have a CIA agent. What is the dance she's going to do around him to make that happen? So that dance is what the scene was about, and it was an amazing beginning to being involved with the series. And from that extraordinary experience, I was asked to come on as an executive producer the following season.
So how many episodes do you usually direct in a season?
Well, we make 12 episodes a season, and I direct 4 of them.
That's a lot.
I know, for an executive producer.
That's like
it is
2 movies.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, now I'm exhausted. Yeah.
But you seem energized
I
by
love
this very demanding show. What does it give you? How does it feed you?
It feeds me all the time because of the depth of the characters, the extraordinary actors I get to work with, and the complexity of the story, and that the story is so relevant and so timely. And one of the things I've always loved about Homeland is that it looks at both sides of an issue, and there's not one right way to look at anything. It is a show that exists very much in the shades of gray, and the world of ambiguity. And one scene we did last year between the journalist and the B&D officer, where they're talking about issues of privacy, and they have totally opposing ideas about it, and they're both correct.
So one of the things that's happened over the years is that we focus more on Claire Danes.
Yes.
Obviously,
Yes.
we lost Damian Lewis.
Yes.
And her character is always moving around, and
Yeah.
you never know quite, is she on the inside, is she on the outside, is she trusted, is she not trusted, is she sane, is she not sane? And this gives you so much room to play with. And talk about how involved in the writing are you in terms of developing arcs over time?
Well, every season, the writers and myself and Claire and Mandy go to DC and have a week of meetings with intelligence experts. And that is a sobering experience. And, we meet from like 9 in the morning till 9 at night with people in all areas of intelligence, and people politically on the very right and the very left. So to get kind
in
of
the same room? No,
not in the same room. In fact, we have literally had people leaving on one exit and entering on the other, so they don't see each other. But to try to get a view of what's really going on. And one of the things Alex Ganza, who created the show, who is an extraordinary person, to work with, and has created an environment where very much the best idea wins, and everyone is encouraged to bring their A game, and it's an amazing working environment. But he asked all of these intelligence experts, what keeps you up at night? What's your worst nightmare? And from listening to what these people are talking about is really where the season comes from, and that carries a certain responsibility, but it still is a story we're telling. and obviously no one's telling us classified information, but it is quite an experience,
Wow.
And
You haven't met the woman who was the heroine behind, the Catherine Bigelow 0 Dark 30 movie.
No.
That would be cool.
Yes, that would be very cool. That
She's
would be
still
very
there,
cool.
I understand.
Yeah.
Do you meet real CIA agents?
Oh yeah, and former directors, and yes, we meet a lot of people. And
So you feel a great responsibility because you said this is topical.
Yes.
The world unfortunately keeps imitating Homeland, and you
please.
don't even realize what
Last
you're doing.
season was, I was filming the finale in the subway tunnels underneath the Reichstag, the German government, the day after Paris happened. And that was profoundly sobering and felt terrible, actually. It was way too close to home.
How did you handle that on the set? Did you have to
We
talk
took
to
a moment.
people?
Oh, absolutely. And with a lot of background and people playing terrorists, and it's a very delicate scenario, and adjustments were made in the script to account for Paris having happened and the horror of that.
What did you do?
There are certain lines of dialogue
Yeah.
that were added to acknowledge, that this had occurred, and that, when Saul talks to Carrie at the hospital in front of Quinn's room and says, "You're one of the people that know how to deal with this," and she's like, after Paris, nobody. I'm paraphrasing. Nobody knows how to deal with this. I don't
did not
know.
realize that.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Well, one of the arcs of the season was about her and him, and there is this enormous need, I think, on the part of all viewers of Homeland for the two of them to be back together in a loving, if you like,
Yes.
mentor-protege
Yes.
relationship. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, that relationship is probably one of the most profound in her life. The father figure and mentor, and in season 4, Carrie was started off in Afghanistan, highly functional but emotionally completely detached after Brody's death. And had a true crisis of conscience, and looking at what she was doing, because her belief in the CIA and the dedication to mission was so profound. And then when you actually look at that and question the mission, and what you're doing, you can never quite be the same again. And that was, of course, a scenario when Saul was not in the CIA. And those relationships change profoundly, because what can you talk about? So much of what you share is what you're doing, and the fact that you're sharing classified information when you're still in the CIA and someone is out of it, you can't really talk to them, and so she lost contact with her father, and then of course the tables are turned, in season 5, where she is now out of the CIA and for 5 minutes has a kind of normal life, which we've never seen before. And
Didn't last.
It did. I know. I was going to say it lasted like 5 minutes.
That German boyfriend was very hunky. I
Yes,
thought.
and
I
a
was
great
sorry
actor,
about that.
wonderful
yes,
guy.
He was in a couple of movies last
Yes,
year.
really
Yeah.
good, really wonderful
German
actor, Alexander
nominated
Feeling.
film, yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, that did not last long for Carrie. She was thrown back into it, but again, that's a situation where she was not in the CIA and Saul was in the CIA. So again, a similar situation. You can't really be completely. What is that relationship when you can't share, when there's so much you can't talk about?
She's always battling between the ability to have a real personal life and her dedication to the work.
Yes.
And although we all
Do
balance
that.
those things,
Yeah.
she does it on this extreme level.
Yes. I mean, again, one of the things I love, besides working with Claire Danes, who is just an extraordinary human and actress, and of course, nothing like Carrie Mathison. I mean, couldn't be farther from, who she is as a person. But the fact that this character is so complicated and layered and complex, and not always likable, but always compelling, and very human, intensely human. Doesn't always do the right thing, but is always thinking, is always, and has is bipolar, has an issue to deal with that in some ways helps her see, in some way helps her not see. It makes for a very layered character.
Well, the other favorite character for the last season was the Miranda Otto character.
My goodness.
Who, we've never seen a woman like this anywhere.
Anywhere.
And she's a badass.
Oh my God. My God.
And she's playing both sides.
Oh, yes.
As a double agent.
Yeah.
And can you talk about how that character? Because was she always going to be who she became from the beginning?
Because Miranda was so amazing, she became more than she became more of what she already was. But a character who, truly, because of what happened to her, because she made this choice to go to the other side, can never be honest with anyone in her life. I mean, that is a very heavy weight to bear. The only person she can be honest with is her handler, is Yvonne. That's the only person who knows who she is.
And she seems to be having an affair with him as well as with Saul.
Yes. So, because she's having an affair with Saul, because it helped her. Because he would be more easily, more easy to manipulate.
There you go.
Whoa. So, I mean, what a fascinating character.
But you have women spies
Yes.
who use sex.
Yes.
The way men spies always use
Absolutely.
sex. Amata Hari.
Yes.
Clearly the model from way back when. But it feels all right. It doesn't feel politically incorrect. It feels powerful.
Right. It's a choice she's made. And she feels like she's made the pact with the devil, and she's found a way to live with it because, the way Yvonne knew how to get to her, to make her able to do it. She could not feel that she was completely a traitor. She had to feel that in some way, Russia and America, have to have ways of communicating. So she's validated something that is abhorrent, and to be able to make it livable. And she is very good at doing that. And of course, Miranda Otto did it beautifully. And
she likes to be the smartest person in the room, or to think that she is.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, Carrie Matheson, the character, also is in a situation where, this wonderful German boyfriend, she can't be her true self with him. There are very few people that Carrie can show all of herself. I mean, I think that her fear was that if she showed it to Jonas, he wouldn't be able to accept it. And that was what ended up happening.
Turned out to be true.
When he saw everything that she was and the deaths that she's caused and her jumping into a tunnel even though she has a 3-year-old daughter and, going down to stop an attack, this is a big thing to accept in your partner. And that kind of a choice. And one of the few people that saw her completely and accepted her 100% is Quinn.
True.
Who, because they are so alike. Now, whether they should be together because they're so alike is a whole other thing. Yes.
Too. Fascinating character. Well, you have talked, when we've talked in the past,
yes.
about the environment that you work in is very women heavy.
Yes.
Talk about what that does to improve, inform, enrich the show.
Well, I'm a big believer in balance. I feel like, I have been mentored by men and women. I don't think directing is easy for anyone. I think that, it's certainly not a field for the faint of heart, but I do think it should be an equal playing field. I don't think it should be more difficult for our daughters to direct than our sons. And I feel like on a set, what you want is a great balance between men and women. So we do have a lot of women behind the scenes in Homeland. We have, besides writers and ADs and first AD and second AD, and again, people don't think of it because they see it as an action show. Or a show that has a lot of action. To me, it's a character show, character thriller. But again, I think women can tell any kind of story, any kind of genre, as I think men can. So I don't want to be limited in any kind of storytelling, nor do I want any woman or man to be.
There's been some discussion lately about hiring a woman director for James Bond.
Yes.
And I would think you would be an awesome candidate.
Nobody has called
Along
yet.
with Suzanne Beer.
Yes, she did a great job on
Did a
the
nice
Night Manager.
audition piece
Yes.
with that.
Yeah.
And she said, I would love to do Bond. Are you kidding? And she talks about how much fun it is to do action
Oh,
scenes.
yeah.
Talk about why it's fun for you.
Well, for me, I came from being a modern dance choreographer. So moving people through space, you know, the swans can come in from the left, or the trucks, or the bad guys. So to me, designing a big action sequence, as long as it has a character base, as long as there's some content to it, I think is hugely exciting and creative. Just to blow up a truck is not very interesting to me. But if it moves the story along in an interesting way, fantastic.
But what you do has to do with building tension.
Yes.
That's your manipulating
Yes.
building blocks
That's
for every
exactly
series.
right. Yes. And I feel like one of the things that people tell me that Homeland does is kind of keep you on the edge of your seat, that they're very anxious. And that's very conscious, you know, that we do that.
What would be the biggest action sequence you've directed to date? Or the most challenging, perhaps, maybe in terms of scale and scope?
The biggest one, I mean, I just did a pilot written by Bill Broyles, who wrote things like Apollo 13 and Flags of Our Father and Castaway, amazing, wonderful man. And the pilot is called Six, and it's about SEAL Team 6. And I did the taking of a high-value target in an Afghan village. But that doesn't actually feel like the biggest action sequence. I don't know, I'd have to think about that. I've done a lot of action.
I'm thinking about the Berlin, you know, you had lots of forces when Carrie is jumping down into the tunnel, lots of different things going on.
Yes.
But
that somehow that just feels like
normal every day.
That didn't feel like, you know, yes, it's a lot of things up in the air, but it feels like, you know, it feels like a big important part of storytelling. And I love doing it. I don't know if I can put my finger on the biggest one. I guess even the first thing I ever directed had a huge action sequence in it. You know, my very first professional job, which was for Steven Spielberg on the series Amazing Stories, and literally my first professional job after doing my short student film that was nominated for an Academy Award.
I think 1985 or something?
Yes. I did the show Amazing Stories that he had, and the one I did was called No Day at the Beach, and it was about storming the beach at Anzio. You know, so PT boats were landing, guys were storming the beach, getting blown up. I think there were, I don't even remember, 150 extras storming the beach, and 12 cameras and 2 IMOs and explosions. And that was my first day on a professional set, you know, and I storyboarded every frame, I planned every camera, you know, that's how I started. So from that point on, that just feels kind of part of storytelling for me.
I understand that you prepare very meticulously.
Oh yes.
You're known for this.
Yes, I am. Because that gives me freedom. Like, I want to know, I've really thought it through, I know what the subtext of the scene is, I know what's going on emotionally for the characters, I have a plan that I feel really confident about, because I want to be open to the magic that happens when you're on the set. When the actors come in with something you could have never thought of alone in a room making your plan. So, you know, that's what gives me freedom. And, you know, every director's different, everyone has their own process in that way, but that's something for me that makes me feel free.
So is there a lack of patience that you have for anyone who would suggest that women aren't good at directing action?
I think it's just ludicrous. You know, I mean, patience, I don't know patience, but I think the fact we're still talking about this in 2016 is just crazy thinking. And to me, it's as ludicrous as saying, well, men can't direct women. Well, of course men can direct women. They've directed wonderful stories about women. You know, if someone understands the story you know, and wants to tell that story, they're going to hopefully do a good job telling it. And it's not about gender. You know, there is no genetic mutation in females that, you know, makes them not able to do action. It's crazy.
And you've put in your 10,000 hours all these years.
Absolutely.
And many women like you have as well.
Absolutely.
More
There are
on
many.
Television.
Yes, because
so
they're...
do the offers come in from the movies? And if they do, are they the movies you'd be interested in?
You know, I knock on wood, I have been very fortunate to get, you know, a fair amount of offers in film. Very grateful for that. But to find the one thing that you really want to do that you're going to spend over a year of your life doing, you know, and for me, it has to be better than an hour of Homeland.
That's hard to do.
And so